Let's go down on the agenda. In this room?
You're not bad. That's all the surgery. You're not too sure.
It was good. Grab that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we are here with Alyssa Carson, and we have been looking forward to this show for a few weeks, maybe even a few months. Dennis said maybe even a couple years. So today is going to be an awesome show, and we will be asking questions about Mars and learning a lot about Mars. So we are a bit of advice. We have 100,000 likes on Facebook. We are on Success Radio on YouTube. We are live on Twitch and on Facebook Live as well on Dennis Normela's page. And shout out to Dennis. Thank you for everything that you've done for us and starting this show and just really just being a great person. So my name is Joshua Birdsell. I'm a young entrepreneur from Alabama. As you know, we have a bit of advice every week, every Tuesday at 5:30. We're trying to get a little bit of advice from everyone so that we can learn a lot and gain a lot of knowledge so that we can continue with our everyday life as best as possible. So I want to introduce Alyssa Carson, and she is just awesome. She has been hardworking and just trying to do everything she can to get this mission to Mars in 2033, I think. I'm not real sure, but I'll let Alyssa tell you a little bit about her, a little bit about her story. So here she is today. All right, Alyssa.
Well, hi. Just to kind of a little bit about what I'm doing and who I am. So I'm 17 years old. I am a senior in high school, but I was inspired to kind of want to become an astronaut and go to Mars. So since then, I have started out just by going to space camps and things like that, but I've now escalated to doing more realistic astronaut training. So my ultimate goal is to be an astrobiologist on one of the future missions to Mars and actually go there and explore. But the things I'm doing now to kind of help prepare myself is I'm currently working with a citizen science group called POSSUM Academy, and POSSUM stands for Polar Suborbital Science in the Upper Mesosphere, and that's just basically a way of saying that we are studying a type of cloud in the upper atmosphere. And so to do that, I'm working with that side of the research, also Final Frontier spacesuit design, and have since done spacesuit training, microgravity training, water survival training, decompression training, G-force training, and those kinds of things with the program. I've been able to kind of advance my space knowledge and take space physiology classes, space atmosphere classes, research day classes, and so that way it's things to add to my resume. So when I do kind of decide to apply to the astronaut selection process, I hopefully have a higher chance of being selected.
That is so true. Yeah, I think you will with all that. I mean, that's quite a list there. I mean, you got me beat for sure. I'm 27 years old, and I mean, I don't even think I had one thing on my list of things I got accomplished by the time I was your age, really and truly, that made a difference as much as you have. So I definitely want to say, you know, shout out to you, and we give you a lot of respect for everything that you're doing and all the hard work that you put in. So, what made you choose Mars out of all the other planets that there are?
Well, I mean, really, the way I got interested in space and kind of specifically Mars is because, you know, I kind of started toying with the idea of wanting to learn more about it when I was around 3 years old. And that was just because, you know, I was a little girl, I was watching cartoons on Nickelodeon, and I happened to be watching the Backyardigans. And the Backyardigans, the kind of basis behind the show is that these five friends go on these imaginary adventures in their backyard every episode. And one of the episodes was a Mission to Mars episode. And since I was little, you know, I wanted to be like one of their friends, go to Mars with them, and go on these little adventures with them. So actually, after that episode, my dad remembers, you know, me coming and asking, you know, can people go to Mars? Are there people on Mars? But no one in my family was really in a science or space career, so they didn't know too much about space. But definitely since that moment, I kept asking for videos, pictures, posters, kind of anything I could get my hands on about space and about Mars, and my interest and passion kind of never went away from there.
That is that's pretty cool. So from Nickelodeon to now, I mean, that's a crazy timeline. You know what I mean? Like everything that you've learned from at that point of it crossing your mind, like, hey, I can do this. This might be something that I can do, and something that you can believe in. Not everybody would think that. You know, that's so cool. And so, is there any other planets that you would like to explore after Mars?
I mean, as far as with our technologies and with the length of a Mars mission, Mars is definitely the most feasible place that we can visit in space. It's the closest to us. It's full of research to be done, and definitely where everyone's looking at their sites. I guess another planet, if I could have just any kind of super fancy technology in the world to go anywhere in the solar system, I maybe want to visit Neptune because it rains diamonds there.
Oh, wow.
So probably bring some buckets or stuff and gather some of the diamonds and bring them back for myself.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. See, there's so many things that you've learned that so many people have no clue whatsoever about space. I mean, raining diamonds. I mean, wow. Like, who would have thought that it'd be? I sure didn't know that. I wonder how many people actually know that. So, what's your favorite thing about Mars?
I mean, for me, definitely now that I've gotten older and kind of figured out what area I really want to look into, now I guess my favorite part about Mars is really similar to the same stuff I want to explore there. I think that it's super interesting, all the research that can be done there, you know, looking for signs of life in the water samples that have been found, but definitely just all the landmarks there and the opportunities that are on Mars. It's probably, you know, just some of my favorite things, but it's definitely the next step for future space exploration.
Okay. That makes sense. So there's a lot of favorites to Mars. I got you. So what should we all know about Mars? Like, what's one thing that you can say that maybe we don't know that we should know about Mars?
Well, I think, you know, a big thing for to know about Mars is definitely that there are plans to go there, and there are space agencies building rockets and things like that to get there. So currently in construction is the SLS, Space Launch System rocket, and the Orion capsule, which are being built and tested right now to hopefully send a human mission in the early 2030s. And with going to Mars, you know, some of our main objectives is to do those research and things like that. And on Mars itself, the ultimate goal could be even to turn Mars into a second Earth. So almost terraforming the whole planet, having a second home for humans to live on. And that's kind of a big part about going to Mars, you know, showing people that we can go there with the technology. We have the ability to go, to stay there, to live there. And even though the terraforming process may take a really long time, it's all about starting that now, and possibly future generations could be vacationing on Mars instead of going to the Bahamas or something.
That's That's so crazy to think about that. Instead of going on a vacation to another state or another country, that we could be going to another planet. You know, it seems far fetched now, but if you really think about it, I mean, the way that we're going with knowledge and learning and experience in different countries. I mean, before you know it, like you say, yeah, we'll be taking vacations to Mars or to maybe, hopefully, any planet. Maybe we can go see the diamonds rain. Like it's so cool to even think that outside of the box, because we're so consumed with things here on Earth, we don't start thinking about the resources that we could possibly get from another planet. So how long will it take you to make it to Mars from here?
So right now with the engines, the current technology, and the engines that we're going to be using for the first missions to Mars, it's going to be about 6 months to get from Earth to Mars, and then the astronauts will stay there for a little over a year, and then around 9 months back. And those numbers can change a little bit. It depends on when the launch happens and things like that. And that's because of the rotation of the planets. So, as Mars and Earth are going around the sun, they don't go in these perfect circles. It's off a little. And so sometimes Mars is closer to Earth, sometimes it's further away. So we want to launch to Mars and come back from Mars when Mars and the Earth are closest to each other. So that's why we stay there so long, because we're waiting for the planets to line back around at their closest meeting point. So that's what the engines that we're going to be using for the first few flights. However, there are plasma engines that will actually reduce that time to 6 weeks rather than 6 months. And as amazing as that would be to actually use those on the first flights, technology develops so fast that most of the rockets and computers and things like that we use in the space program are actually kind of old, just because they have to go through so much testing to be certified to be a part of the rocket and stay for astronauts and things like that. So if we were to change the engines every time they got faster and newer, we'd actually never get to space, because we'd spend the whole time testing them and things like that. But for future missions, that time will eventually be reduced down to 6 weeks.
So it sounds like rocket science, what you're speaking of. Okay, so that's not too bad, I guess, but like you said, it just depends. And so it should be around 2033 when they're thinking that Mars is going to be coming back around and be at its closest point with us, and they're thinking that's an open window to go ahead and send you there, because, I mean, obviously you've been training your whole life, and, I mean, they're just going to be like, who's going to compete with this girl, Like, by the time it's all said and done, they're going to be like, nobody. I mean, she's the first pick. I mean, do you know any other kids your age that are shooting for the same mission?
I mean, obviously, lots of kids are interested in space and interested in becoming an astronaut, but definitely the things that I'm doing right now, the Citizen Science program, Possum Academy that I'm in, everyone in that program is, and the program itself is actually made for graduates of, people who've already graduated college. So everyone usually with me through that is in their 30s, 40s, 50s, but they did take a chance on me, letting me in around 15, but it's been a great way to kind of prove to them that the younger minds can come and do the testing just as well as the ones who have graduated college. So it's been really nice to have that opportunity and be able to learn more and be able to do these really cool trainings.
That's pretty awesome that they let you in there, and I mean, but you're like you said, you're doing the test scores are even better or not the same as someone that's older than you. So they're saying that's really irrelevant, that you can go, but it's learning as much as you can right now for the future, so that you can go at that point. So you're learning all this new technology, and like you said, technology's changing every day. So I mean, you're pretty much learning rocket science every single day. I can only imagine what that's like. So what do you know about the environment on Mars? Like, what's the environment like? What's the weather like on Mars?
Yeah, Mars is pretty different from Earth. To start off with, the atmosphere on Mars is thinner than what we have here on Earth. So that's why Mars is not able to hold like oxygen and things like that in its atmosphere, just because it's thin. so things just escape back into the vacuum of space. So there is gravity on Mars. It's not just completely floating about. So it's about 1/3 the gravity that we feel here on Earth. So less than what we're used to on like in everyday life. It's also, most of the atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide, which isn't too great for us, but we're working on trying to figure out ways to kind of thicken the atmosphere and convert that to more oxygen to kind of get it more similar to Earth. But right now, since Mars is further from the sun, it's a lot colder. The average temperature around the planet can be around -50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold. And even at the poles on Mars, where it's super cold, it can get down to -190 Fahrenheit, so it can get pretty cold. But at the equator, where it's warmest, it can also get up to around 70 degrees. So there's lots of temperature changes depending on where you are on the planet. So that's a big thing to look at. And also, the UVs and radiation coming from the sun, since there's less of an atmosphere, you could be more exposed to that because you don't have that layer protecting you like we would here on Earth. And those are kind of the major differences between Earth and Mars. The whole planet itself is a bit smaller than Earth, but as far as like land mass and things like that, they're around the same.
That's pretty interesting to know. I definitely didn't know all that about it having an equator and all that. And I probably said I feel stupid. You know what I mean? I feel very uneducated. But that's why we have this show because I've pointed my direction of my life in a different area. So it's so cool to be able to talk to you and learn all these things about Mars. I really just want to thank you, and I want to thank all our guests for joining us. We have a lot of people that's joined us on Facebook here. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and I definitely want to thank you. It's just so cool because I'm sitting here thinking about all this, and I'm imagining how Mars is looking. I mean, you're definitely piecing it together, a perfect picture of what it's like on Mars, and I think that's very cool of you to be able to learn that much about it to where you can describe it. So how do you train for Mars on Earth?
Well, for the mission to Mars, and when we are ready to send people there, we're going to need pilots, commanders, we're going to need our scientists, we're going to need medical officers. So that's all kind of, it's kind of weird because when you're wanting to become an astronaut or be a part of the Mars mission, you almost have to have a job to get a job as an astronaut. So it's definitely about finding what you're interested in and, which one of those categories you'd want to fall into. So, as far as training, things like that, astronauts go through, lots of physical and like medical training just to make sure their body is ready for the mission because, a mission to Mars, that's going to be the longest astronauts have ever been exposed to space. And while they're on the planet, which is going to be, kind of like what I said earlier, a little over a year, that's going to be a good while. Astronauts are going to be exposed to gravity, but still it is different from Earth. So while you're in space, you lose muscle density, you lose bone density, your muscles get weaker because your body is like, oh, I'm floating, I don't need strength anymore, so it starts to weaken up. So when you come back to Earth, it sometimes be a little hard to recover from that, just because your body has to get used to holding your own weight again and fighting gravity that we're just used to doing normally here on Earth. So since the mission to Mars is going to be so long, it's definitely finding people that are going to be well adapted to that and be able to exercise a lot while they're in space to kind of keep their muscles as strong as possible. Also having the knowledge behind it, and also the mental aspect of it. You're going to be gone for a good bit of time, 2 to 3 years. And you're going to be with those same people for that amount of time. So it's being able to kind of take the mental aspect of it. And, there's different simulations that we have here on Earth. They have a Mars simulation study where they'll send you off into the desert and stick you in with some people and see how long you last and see how you do in those situations. So there's definitely lots of research going on now that will benefit to learn more and be more prepared for when the mission to Mars does happen.
Awesome. So Dennis Nurmela just joined us on the screen here. And just want to say hey to Dennis. My next question is so important, and I would like Dennis to feed off of this. Maybe he has something to add. So why should we go to Mars? What do you think the answer is going to be here, Dennis?
No, I want to hear it. I've got some other questions to ask her too. I'm going to ask you some other questions, but I like that question. Go for it.
Okay, go ahead, Alyssa. Tell us,
Well,
why should we go to Mars?
I mean, really the reason that Mars is so important is because of all the benefits that can come from it. You know, the big thing is that Mars is kind of that first step in encouraging future space exploration. You know, Mars is the planet closest to us. It's the next place we can explore, and you know, showing everyone as a you know, as a world that we can get there and we can do that offers and kind of shows people that maybe we can go further than that. So, you know, having this mission to Mars is hopefully encouraging the next generation after that. You know, maybe the next kid wants to go to a moon of Jupiter or something like that. But it's encouraging and inspiring that drive to actually explore further into space because we've only explored so little. And also with Mars, you know, with the engines that we're developing and figuring out the problems we're going to have and going to Mars, we're developing new technologies for those things, and all those technologies are staying right here on Earth and hopefully being adapted into many different ways, not just space. So lots of cool technologies, your cell phone, Velcro, all these things that you wouldn't think of were either invented by the space program or for the space program. And so that continues to happen as we uncover new issues when we're dealing with space, and as we continue to find ways to change those. And also the different resources that we learn about on Mars can be, you know, benefited back here on Earth. And, you know, even the signs of maybe possibly finding bacterial life in the water samples, that would just be groundbreaking research right there.
Alyssa, I've got a question for you. I'm really excited to have you here on the show. I don't know if you know my association here, and I started the Yes Place, the Young Entrepreneur program that this radio station is part of, and I'm especially feeling connected with you because in about 2 weeks I'm moving to China. Now the only difference between China and Mars is there's 1.5 billion people already there when I get there, so you've got a different thing going. But I feel a connection with you in the fact that being willing to make change and going towards the unknown. I feel a kinship with you in that because all my life I have really enjoyed just, you know, hey, nobody's ever done that before. Okay, cool. I'll go do that then. You know, so that's the part I wanted to ask you a question about is have you always had that sense of not just adventure, but wanting to be the first to do something? Or if somebody says, oh, nobody's ever done that before, does that kind of get you stirred up a little bit?
I definitely, you know, and when I was young, that's really what kept driving me to want to become an astronaut. You know, I was first interested just because it was, you know, someplace that no one had gone before. It was red, it was there, it was someplace I could explore. And so that just kind of kept my interest. And, you know, as I've gotten older, I've learned more about the importance of going to Mars and the things that we can benefit from it. But definitely, you know, that's what kind of encouraged me through my childhood, was just the curiosity of it. So it's a huge drive for getting people to do things.
That's great, yeah. And so two other questions I have for you. One is some of the other things that you're doing in your life. Do you think you'll be able to do some of them there? Or are you going to be able to play the piano there or bring a soccer ball? Any ideas of being able to continue in those areas that you have an interest?
Yeah, I mean, you know, astronauts get a little pouch of personal items that they can bring with them. So maybe even having the idea of bringing like a deflated soccer ball and then pumping it up once I'm on Mars, having like the first like universal galactic soccer kick, however that plays out, something like that. But yeah. It definitely needs to hopefully share my interest, you know, with my work as well.
You're going to have to really try to sell them, though, on a piano being one of your personal items, right?
Yeah, we may not get that far. It might be a little too heavy.
Yeah.
That would have to be my personal. My personal bag. I'd be wanting to carry the piano.
One of those apps on an iPhone, maybe, or something. You can kind of play a little bit. The other question is, how are you doing with your? In one of your videos, it was mentioned that you're learning you're taking college classes and you're learning some other languages. First of all, what languages are they? And do you find it easier to learn multiple languages at the same time than just one?
Well, I mean, so the school that I'm going to in Baton Rouge is called Baton Rouge International, and it's a immersion school. So starting in kindergarten, when I first started school, I basically had people coming at me speaking French and Spanish, and we took all of our subjects in all four of the languages. So growing up and having people native to the country that they were teaching in. So, for example, like Spanish class was always taught by someone from South America or Spain. And so growing up through that, I've been able to, become fluent in four different languages, which is English, French, Spanish, and Chinese. And it's been a great way to kind of learn a lot about the culture and the language itself. And hopefully it's kind of opened my brain to make it easier to learn other languages as well in the future. But since I was so young when I started learning it, as a little kindergartner, I didn't know it was bizarre to be learning four languages in
Cool.
kindergarten, or I didn't know any different, and that's just what I grew up on. So it's just kind of like a normal to me, I suppose.
I love that. I really do. And I think one of the things that I'll be doing in China is working with a group that's putting together an international school that will be teaching English through immersion in China and all that stuff. So I'd say it's congratulations, and I hope that you do well. And I'll sign off and let Joshua finish the rest of it. So I'll leave you with adios, mi amigo. Mi español es muy chistoso. Es bueno por mi trabajo, but no más. And sai tien, what pongo.
Get some Chinese in there.
A little bit, yeah. I should know more since I'm moving there. So it's great to meet you. And I talked with your dad too about trying to connect with you at some point on another little video thing I'm going to do from China. So I'd love to reconnect with you at some point. So I'm real proud of you. You know,
Sounds awesome.
when you do make that flight, you'll know that there's a lot of people's not only their thoughts be with you, but in their heart, a lot of people wish they were going. Because they had some dreams and just didn't follow them, and you've chosen to follow them. So congratulations on that. Great. Nice to get to meet you.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. Sai tien.
All right, thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right, Alyssa. So back to the Mars. Should we go to Mars, and why should we go to Mars? So how will going to Mars affect us here on Earth?
Well, I mean, with going to Mars, I think people are going to think about space travel differently, and also hopefully more people are going to get excited about space and excited about the mission to Mars, kind of like how it was during the Apollo days when man was landing on the moon. Everyone was excited about space. Everyone knew what was going on. So hopefully getting that excitement back in and developing new things and bringing new research back and kind of continuing and building off of that excitement to hopefully do more in space.
Okay, so what? I mean, the effects here on Earth, like the economy. How would that change the economy?
I mean, space is huge with the economy. There's tens of thousands of jobs within the space industry that it offers, and when something as big as a Mars mission and building a whole new system comes about, you're going to need a whole set of, new departments working on this rocket because we're building so many more components. And typically in the space program, states all over the country are involved. Usually there's around 48 of the 50 states who are offering some piece, some part of the rocket that's going to be going. So it's definitely the country as a whole, and also with the Mars mission, we're hoping for it to be more of a global mission, maybe even having like someone from NASA, someone from the European Space Agency, having a cosmonaut from Russia. Hopefully it would be more of a binding thing and have it as if the world was going to Mars, not just one space agency or one country.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, and you're right, it would be so important. I didn't even think about the space industry would definitely be booming if we could go to Mars, because we would need more rockets, more, a lot more science going on there when you're carrying more than one person, at a time, and maybe even hundreds of people a day, even to Mars. You know, when you sit back and start thinking about that, and like, oh, well, this actually could really happen. You know, then you start breaking it down. You're like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, that would cause more jobs because then, you know, what material are we going to learn that we can use here on Earth from Mars? You know, and that might create jobs as well. So I do have a couple more questions for you, and then we're going to wrap up everything. We're getting close to the end of our show. So, what is some advice for kids wanting to be an astronaut? Like, what's some advice that you can give them?
Right. I mean, if you're interested in being an astronaut or going in anything within space or even STEM, start in your local area, see what's around you. Whether that is science museums or maybe just books at a library, whatever it may be. But start locally, see what's around you and the closest to you. And also, if you're going to these places like a science museum, talk about your goals, talk about what you're interested in doing, because you never know what kind of opportunities are out there. You never know what the lady at the science center, you don't know, maybe she has someone who works in the field you're wanting to go into. So you never really know what opportunities are out there. So it's always good to tell people about your goals and see what outcomes can come from that. And once you start off looking in your local area, if you want to expand from that and look even further out, maybe in your country or in your area of the country, but it's definitely about continuing and working hard at it, because something like becoming an astronaut is it's a lot of hard work, and it's also about finding what your interests are, because there's no one way to become an astronaut. You can go through the military, you can go through the civilian way, you can be a scientist, you can be the one flying the rockets. So it all depends on your interests, but it's about having that dream, following that dream, and never letting anyone take it away from you. Because if it's really something you want to do, then you can work towards and eventually achieve it.
And just to clarify, how old are you again?
I am 17.
Wow. That's definitely a mouthful of advice from a 17-year-old. I mean, you can definitely tell that you have a lot of knowledge and you spend a lot of time, doing your own thing and believing in your own dream, and we all have to respect that. So my last question for you, and I'm going to give you the floor for a second to say whatever you need to after this. So what will you do when you get back from Mars and your first mission is complete?
Well, I mean, once I get back from Mars, since I would have been in space and on Mars for so long, that's putting a lot of time on my muscles and my bones with them getting weaker since I'm in space. So after a mission to Mars, I wouldn't necessarily be going back to space again, just because that's just endangering my body and going back with the chance of them getting too weak. I wouldn't necessarily go to space after a Mars mission, but I can definitely continue the research that we've started on Mars by bringing some of it back, continuing the research here on Earth. Hopefully continue to inspire people and inspire kids to follow their own dreams and their own goals, and kind of live that life of just kind of a retired astronaut, but hopefully still working within astrobiology and the research that we got from Mars.
That's so cool. Yeah, see, I wouldn't have thought about that either. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of things that you're learning, about your body being weak whenever you come back. I would have thought you would have said, oh, no, I'm going for another planet. Let's go further. But no, you're like, no, I think I'm just going to kick back. I don't know. I'm going back out in space. Like, if we make it that far, then that's really cool. And a very adult way of looking at it as well, being 17 years old. So is there anything else that we left out on today's show that if you want anybody else to know about Mars, is there anything we left out?
I mean, not necessarily. Just everyone go follow your dreams, and we are the Mars generation, and we'll get to Mars.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alyssa, for your time today, and we want to thank your dad as well. And I know there's a lot of people watching from Tuscaloosa, where I'm from, so y'all head on up to Huntsville and go check out the Space Center. I know me and Alyssa was just talking about that earlier. I was like, yeah, I know about Huntsville Space Center, even though I didn't get a chance to go, but I know it's there. So, definitely take the time out to go to the space station if that's something that you want to do. Follow your dreams, follow your heart, and put your all into it, because we definitely can see that that's what Alyssa has done, and we have to give you the respect. So thank you, Mr. Burt, on the other end. I know you're in the background, and thank you, Miss Alyssa Carson, for your time today. And we will see you next week on another A Bit of Advice with another great guest.
Hey, put me back in there too, would you?